This is ASBR Boxing. I'm delighted to be joined by Greg as we have just watched the Joyce against Zhang weigh-ins. Obviously, main event tomorrow night, the Copper Box Arena in London. WBO interim heavyweight title on the line. Both men looked in good shape there on the scales. I think it's fair to say, Greg. Bit of an not a, really an intense stare down, but there was a bit of intent there, especially from Joyce. I feel. We'll go into the weights and all more in more detail in a second. But first and foremost, Greg, how did you see the weigh and what did you make of it?
Yeah, thanks again for having me, Paul. Paul, they just look like two guys that don't give a fuck. They just want to fight with each other, man. You can just tell looking at them. They just look through each other as if, I don't care, but I'm punching you tomorrow and that's it. I don't think Zhang looked intimidated at all. I thought both men looked in tremendous shape. Zhang usually carries a little bit of meat on him. He looked trimmer now. I thought Joyce looked in ridiculous shape, like so good, almost ripped to the bone. I haven't seen Joyce looking that good before, so I think these are just two guys who are coming to fight, and I'm really looking forward to it, Paul.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, I think that as the closer the fights got, I was interested in it, but then as
Yeah,
it's day by day, I've just got more interested by it, especially in fight week. And the whole, do you remember? Did you see the whole thing with Zhang saying "chat shit, get zanged" and all that? It was brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. You mentioned there
yeah,
obviously about two men looking in good shape. Just a quick in terms of numbers. Zhang weighed in at 19 stone 12 pounds, which is 278 pounds in total, which is 1 pound heavier than the Hrgovic fight. So probably not really reading much into that. Whereas I think there's a bit of a difference in Joe Joyce's shape and physique. He weighed in there earlier on at 18 stone 4 pounds. So it's 256 pounds, which is 15 pounds down from his Joseph Parker fight. So he's lost over a stone since
yeah.
September, that fight was. What do you make of that, Greg? Do you think that we'll look at Joe Joyce first? Do you think the fact that he's a good bit lighter tells you anything about how he's going to go about this fight?
It does, Paul. It tells me that he's looking for speed as well as power. Anybody knows you can stand in front of Zhang and have a trade off with him, but what Joyce wants to do is hurt Zhang, not get hurt back and win this fight. To me, he needs to be a bit lighter on his feet to do that. He's never going to be able to dance around the ring like Muhammad Ali, but he needs to at least be a little bit lighter where he can move easier, look for angles, pick his punches, and be quicker than Zhang because the power is always going to be there with Joyce, whether he loses a stone or what have you from previous fights or not. But it's the best I've ever seen him look. I thought he looked tremendous, and it just tells me it's a guy who's taking this really serious tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree. I think, Joyce, well, I think at the start of his career, he was a little bit lighter, and then his last few fights, we've seen him come in a bit heavier. But now I think, Judge, exactly what you said there, mate. I completely agree. I think he looked in incredible condition there. Do you think that the fact he's lighter, obviously neither of these two are known for being, lightning fast heavyweights. I said in one of our previews for this fight that Joe Joyce isn't known as a fast heavyweight, but compared to Zhang, he's got the speed of a flyweight. Um, do you think that in terms of Zhang that he's just going to go in there and think, do you know what? Not a lot of people think I can win this fight. He probably himself knows that he's nearly 49. His gas tank isn't known as being great. Do you think that he's going in there thinking, right, 19 stone 12, only basically the same weight as the Hrgovic fight. I'm going to try and take you out in the first half of the fight. Do you think that's his game plan?
Yeah, I actually think he's really durable, Paul, but you can only be so durable against certain heavyweights. And if you keep letting Joe Joyce hit you, then you're going to be in trouble. I just look at his weight, and he actually, to me, looked trimmer. He's not ripped, but he looked in good shape. I've seen him looking heavier and not as conditioned. Um, so I think that he's going to come out. I actually think he might play it safe, maybe for a round or two, and then really start to try and put it on Joyce. But the game plan for Zhang, I mean, he's 19 stone 12. He's just got to keep walking Joe Joyce down. He's never going to be able to move away from Joe Joyce. It's all he knows. So I think it's going to be really interesting, Paul.
Looking at Joyce quickly, obviously the last fight against Joseph Parker, he was far heavier himself, and he was a far bigger man than Parker is. Parker is known to be a fast heavyweight, elusive, quick on his feet. Zhang's almost the complete opposite in every department. So if you're
Yeah.
Joe Joyce, obviously that was a career best performance against Joseph Parker. What do you need to do? Do you need to do anything the same you did against Parker? What do you need to do different when you're facing Zhang?
Yeah, he came in heavier because he wanted to bully Parker and he wanted to throw him all around the ring. With Zhang, he's still capable of bullying Zhang, but it would be silly to come in really heavy and just stand and slug with a slugger. If he's got different things in his arsenal, he's an Olympic medalist. Trim that bit of weight down, you're still going to have your power and use your other credentials. So I think he's looking at Zhang, still knows that he's a big guy. I think he was slightly taller. I don't know, Joyce about 6'6", 6'7". Um, and he's not young either, by the way. I think Joe Joyce is about 37 or 38 now. So a lot of things that we could look at in this fight. But Paul, I think he's come in slightly later just because he wants to use speed as well as power. And if things aren't going to plan and Zhang's quite durable, he wants to be able to outbox him and move as much as he can. So yeah, I think he's done the right thing coming in a little later.
Just finally, Greg, there's not much more we can really say about the weigh-ins. Obviously, both looking in incredible shape. However, I have to ask, but I'm not going to accept any sitting on the fence either. Has the weigh-in and seeing them weigh in and the face-off, has that changed your final prediction for the fight at all? If so, why? And if not, what is your prediction?
Do you know what's a funny one, Paul? I don't know if I've spoke too much about my prediction for this fight. I think this is one of the first times I've been asked. It's slightly changed because I was really impressed with the shape Joyce was in. I was impressed with Zhang as well, but Joyce has got a look of an animal in him at the moment, and I just think that I can see Joyce stopping him. When it's going to come in the fight, it's difficult because it will depend the way that Zhang fights Joyce. But I think we're probably looking at a Joe Joyce knockout in the second half of the fight.
Yeah, I think that's the general consensus as well. I think a lot of people agree with you there, Greg. I think a lot of people have said Joe Joyce in round 7 to 12. I kind of agree, but I would maybe going a little bit earlier. I think I was going to go with the middle third of the fight, so roughly around 5 to 8. I could
Yeah,
see Joyce maybe breaking him down. Perhaps it might come a little bit later than that, but I don't see Zhang. He'll obviously pose a threat because he's heavy and he's a big puncher. But after 4 rounds, I'll be very interested to see how fresh Zhang looks, because
yeah,
then I think Joyce will take over, and if he can land the shots, and Joyce has got an underrated job. He lands
yeah,
that job regularly in all
yeah.
of his fights. So I think that the stoppage for me could come a little bit earlier. And the way in, I was a wee bit surprised to see Joyce as light, but I completely agree with what you've said. He looks in incredible shape, and yeah, it's a fight I'm really looking forward to.
Me also, Paul. I think if you look at what your prediction was there, we're not too far apart. Yeah, you've got 2 rounds earlier than me, but round 7 to 8, that's included in my thoughts as well. So we could be sitting here, two very correct gentlemen tomorrow night.
Yeah, well, let's hope so, mate. Thanks very much for jumping on. Obviously, just the reaction there to the Joyce and Zhang weigh-ins. Massive fight tomorrow night on BT Sport. Definitely be tuning in myself. And yeah, thanks, Greg, for your time. All the best, mate.
Thanks very much for having me, Paul. Take care.